What if the stories we call myths were never meant to entertain, but to awaken? What if behind every dragon, every cosmic battle, every journey into the underworld, lies a secret, a key waiting patiently to unlock the hidden chambers of the universe within you? Imagine this. An ancient priest in Sumer, thousands of years ago, drawing cryptic symbols into wet clay as starlight flickers overhead. He's not merely recording tales of gods and monsters. He is encoding sacred truths, veiling celestial mechanics and soul-altering wisdom in allegory. Myths, to him, are not fiction. They are cosmic transmissions. And we, in our modern age, have forgotten how to listen. Across the ages, humanity has crafted myths with uncanny parallels. Whether it's the Egyptian voyage of Ra through the underworld or the Norse Ragnarok, or the Hindu dance of Shiva, the motifs repeat. The flood, the hero's trial, the dying and resurrecting god. Why? Because these aren't isolated stories born from fantasy. They are mirrors of the inner and outer cosmos, patterned after the rhythms of time, the cycles of transformation, and the architecture of consciousness itself. But what if these myths aren't just ancient poetry? What if they are maps? Maps that guide us not just through the stars, but through the labyrinth of the soul. What if the serpent in Eden, the phoenix of Persia, and the wheel of Dharma are not separate symbols, but facets of a universal code whispering truths from beyond the veil? In this video, we will journey through this hidden terrain. We'll explore how ancient myths may be more than metaphor, how they might encode scientific, spiritual, and cosmic wisdom once known by priest kings and seers. We'll uncover the esoteric significance buried in their patterns, the philosophical currents flowing beneath their symbols, and the practical techniques they still offer the seeker willing to look deeper. So open your mind and still your breath, for the myths are not dead. They are sleeping, and when you know how to read them, the universe begins to speak. Long before telescopes pointed at the heavens or scientific journals tried to define the world, ancient civilizations looked to the sky and the earth and spoke in symbols. Their stories were not mere tales, they were sacred languages. In the temples of Kemet, the Vedic forests of India, the fires of Zoroastrian Persia, and the shamanic tribes of Mesoamerica, myth was not mythology. It was ontology, it was cosmology, it was truth cloaked in narrative. Let us begin in ancient Egypt, where gods did not simply exist in myth, they were reflections of divine principles within the human soul. Isis and Osiris were not merely siblings or lovers, they were the archetypal duality of death and rebirth, fragmentation and wholeness, divine feminine and sacred masculine. Their myth, told in hieroglyph and temple ritual, reveals the process by which spirit descends into matter and must be resurrected through inner alchemy. The death of Osiris and the magic of Isis symbolize the hidden art of transmuting darkness into wisdom, loss into illumination. Travel east, and the Vedic texts whisper another form of mythic science. The Rigveda sings of Indra slaying the serpent Vritra, not a literal beast, but the cosmic obstacle that dams the flow of divine consciousness. This battle echoes in every human struggle to dissolve illusion and open the floodgates of inner vision. The sages who chanted these hymns understood that the mythic battlefield was also the psyche, and that each tale of gods warring above reflected the turmoil and transformation within. In Greece, Plato called myth a lie that tells the truth. He did not dismiss it but revered it as the vehicle through which divine truths were safely passed down, protected from corruption by cloaking them in allegory. In the mystery schools of Eleusis and Delphi, initiates were not taught facts, they were initiated into mythic experience. Demeter's descent and Persephone's return were not dramatizations, they were sacred reenactments of the soul's cycle between realms. Carl Jung, centuries later, would rediscover what the ancients always knew. He saw myths as expressions of the collective unconscious, universal truths bubbling up in symbolic form. Archetypes like the hero, the shadow, the wise old man, or the great mother are not invented by culture, they are discovered through it. Myths are the dream language of humanity, coded with truths too vast to fit into logic alone. Even indigenous tribes across the earth speak a similar tongue. The Navajo, the Yoruba, the Aborigines of Australia, all encoded cosmic principles into their storytelling. Time, for them, was not linear but cyclical. The world was not dead matter but a living web of spirit. Their myths did not describe events, they described relationships between human and nature, soul and cosmos, self and spirit. And across these traditions, one pattern repeats: the myth as initiatory tool, not just to teach morals, but to activate consciousness, to awaken memory, to remind us of who we are beyond the veil of appearances. These myths survive not because they are ancient, but because they are eternal. Their power lies not in how literally we believe them, but in how deeply we feel them, how skillfully we decode them. So what if we read these myths not with our eyes, but with our inner sight? What if we treated them not as relics of a primitive past, but as encrypted messages from a more awakened age? Because the ancients did not mythologize the universe. They listened to it, they danced with it, they remembered it, and they left behind keys for us, disguised as dragons, serpents, floods, and fires, waiting for us to turn the lock. To truly understand how the universe may be revealing secrets through ancient myths, we must first ask, what is myth, truly? Myth is not a lie. Nor is it just a story passed down to explain the weather or teach children right from wrong. Myth is a coded transmission. It is symbolic software that runs quietly in the background of culture and consciousness, embedding divine architecture into human language. And like any great code, it speaks in patterns, archetypes, metaphors, cosmic structures, and hidden geometries. Let us begin with the most ubiquitous pattern in myth across the world, the hero's journey. From Gilgamesh to Hercules, from Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita to Luke Skywalker in modern myth-making, this pattern repeats. A call to adventure, a descent into darkness, a confrontation with the shadow, the finding of a sacred boon, and finally, the return, transformed. But this is no coincidence. This is the spiral pattern of cosmic evolution. It reflects the orbit of planets, the breadth of the universe, expansion, contraction, transformation, rebirth. It mirrors the alchemical formula, solve et coagula, dissolve and rejoin. The hero's path is not just a story, it is a template for initiation, the soul's awakening through trial, death, and illumination. Consider the myth of the Great Flood, present in over 200 cultures. From Noah in the Bible to Manu in Hindu tradition, from the Sumerian Ziusudra to the Aztec Coxcox, the story is the same. The world is destroyed by water, and a chosen vessel carries life into a new age. Now decode it symbolically. Water is the unconscious. The flood is the overwhelming force of transformation. The ark or boat is the inner vessel, conscious awareness, spiritual practice, the stable structure that carries the soul through chaos. This is not simply a record of ancient cataclysm. It is a metaphor for inner renewal. The myth tells us, when the unconscious rises and old paradigms dissolve, only what is centered and true will carry us forward. Next, turn your gaze to the recurring serpent in mythology. In Eden, it is the tempter. In Egypt, the Ouroboros swallows its own tail. In India, it is Kundalini, the coiled energy resting at the base of the spine. Why does this symbol persist? Because the serpent is the spiral, the DNA helix, the flow of energy through the chakras, the hidden life force that, when awakened, leads to divine union. Myths don't fear the serpent, they revere it. Only later, when esoteric knowledge was suppressed, did the serpent become the villain. In truth, it is the guardian of the threshold, the gatekeeper to inner power. Even myths of death and resurrection, Osiris, Jesus, Dionysus, Tammuz, are not just about men dying and rising. They are solar metaphors. They reflect the sun's journey through the night sky, the soul's descent into the underworld, and the cyclical nature of life itself. These myths are not biographies. They are celestial maps embedded in narrative. And what of the sacred feminine, so often veiled in mystery? In myths, she appears as Isis, Inanna, Kali, Mary, each embodying divine intuition, creation, destruction, wisdom beyond intellect. These aren't just goddesses, they are principles of consciousness. Myth encodes the polarity of being, the union of the masculine order, logic, form and the feminine chaos, intuition, formlessness, into tales that reach the soul without bypassing the intellect. Each element of myth, be it a character, a creature, a trial, or a triumph, is a cipher, and the key to decoding it is inner awareness. Myth speaks the language of the subconscious. It bypasses rational filters and delivers its message directly to the soul. Because the universe doesn't always speak in equations. Sometimes it speaks in symbols. And myths are the vocabulary of that cosmic poetry. Now that we've begun to peel back the veil and glimpse the symbolic architecture behind ancient myths, we must venture even deeper, into the paradoxes, the patterns beneath patterns, the sacred geometry of thought encoded in metaphor. Every myth is a multidimensional construct. On the surface, it is story. Beneath that, it is psychology. Beneath that, it is spiritual initiation. And beneath that, it is physics. Not the kind you'll find in textbooks, but the quantum kind. The kind that mystics and modern physicists now both whisper about, where consciousness is not a byproduct of matter, but the origin of it. Take for instance the tree of life, found in the Norse Yggdrasil, the Kabbalistic Sephiroth, the Hindu Ashvatha. These aren't just trees, they are diagrams of creation. They are cosmic blueprints, depicting the emanation of reality from the unmanifest into the manifest, from the formless void into structure, self, soul, and sensation. The Kabbalistic tree of life in particular is a map of spiritual ascent. 10 spheres, 22 connecting paths, each sphere a stage of consciousness, each path an inner trial. Climbing this tree isn't a physical act, it's the journey of raising awareness from the base instinct of survival to divine union. And the myth of Adam and Eve eating from this tree? That, too, is misunderstood. The serpent offered knowledge, not sin. The fall from Eden may not have been a punishment, but a necessary descent into duality, so the soul could experience contrast, awaken, and return home, wiser, fuller, complete. Or consider the cosmic egg, a mythological motif appearing in Egyptian, Finnish, Chinese, and Vedic traditions. The universe, born from an egg. This is not primitive symbolism. It is fractal truth. The egg is the singularity, the undivided whole from which polarity emerges. Light and dark, spirit and matter, Shiva and Shakti. Myth whispers to us, the universe is not built linearly, but holographically. Each part reflects the whole. Even trickster figures, like Loki, Hermes, or Coyote, hold esoteric significance. They are not mere mischief makers. They represent the quantum anomaly, the necessary chaos that disrupts the known and introduces creative evolution. They are the wildcards of consciousness, breaking the rules to forge new paths. In spiritual alchemy, this is the Negretto, the dark night of the soul that precedes transformation. Now let's speak of sacred time. Modernity traps us in linear thinking, past, present, future. But myth collapses time into cycles. The Hindu concept of yugas. The Mayan Baktuns, the phoenix rising after 500 years. Myth teaches that time is not a straight line, but a spiral, constantly returning, yet never the same. This mirrors the process of inner growth, how we revisit the same wounds, the same challenges, but from higher levels of understanding. The spiral is the symbol of both the universe's expansion and your soul's unfolding. Furthermore, many myths encode astrological and astronomical alignments. The 12 labors of Hercules correspond to the 12 zodiac signs. The Egyptian myth of Horus rising after Set's defeat parallels the winter solstice, when the sun dies and is reborn. Christ's birth on December 25th, aligned with the solar rebirth. These stories follow the rhythm of the stars because our ancestors knew, as above, so below. The cosmos and the consciousness within us are one mirror. And yet, the greatest secret myths offer is this. The myth is never about someone else. It is about you. You are the hero. You are the serpent and the savior, the tower and the storm, the crucifixion and the resurrection. These stories play out in the psyche and the soul. And when you begin to read them as dream language from the universe itself, you begin to see your life differently. Not as a series of random events, but as a sacred initiation. A cosmic play in which you are both the actor and the author. So what if the universe does not hide its secrets, but sings them, softly, symbolically, through the myths we've inherited and ignored? If you learn to read these myths, not with the eyes of logic but with the heart of the mystic, you may just hear the voice of the universe whisper your name. We've journeyed through the mythic landscapes, decoding symbols and unveiling truths embedded in ancient stories. But knowledge, no matter how profound, must be lived to become wisdom. Myth was never meant to remain trapped in scrolls or stone. It was designed to guide the seeker through transformation, from the mundane to the mystical. So how do we apply this living mythology to our everyday lives? Begin with awareness. The first practice is symbolic perception. Start seeing your life not as a string of random events, but as a myth unfolding in real time. When conflict arises, ask, what archetype am I embodying right now? Are you the hero, facing your dragon? Are you the wounded healer? Are you the seeker lost in the forest, awaiting a guide? This shift in perception is not about fantasy. It is about decoding the inner script. When you see your challenges as initiations, your relationships as mirrors, your setbacks as sacred trials, you reclaim authorship of your journey. Your reality becomes a canvas painted in mythic hues. Try a daily ritual of symbolic journaling. At the end of each day, write down key moments and interactions, not as mere events, but as mythic symbols. If you felt betrayed, who was the trickster? If you received unexpected help, who was the wise mentor? With time, this symbolic language begins to rewire your perception. You awaken to the hidden script. Another profound tool is mythic meditation. Choose a myth that resonates with your current phase of life. Read it slowly, symbolically, then close your eyes. Enter the myth. Imagine yourself walking as the hero, descending into the underworld, facing the beast, returning with light. Let your subconscious speak. What fears arise? What messages emerge? This form of active imagination, pioneered by Carl Jung, is more than visualization. It is communion, a sacred dialogue with your deeper self. And when practiced regularly, it begins to reveal inner archetypes, unresolved shadows, and hidden gifts. Engage also with symbolic environments. The ancients built temples, aligned with celestial rhythms, filled with sacred geometry. You can recreate a fragment of that sacredness in your space. Use symbols that speak to you. A spiral, a tree of life, a serpent. Let your room, your altar, your home become a living myth. A reminder that you walk not in ordinary space, but through sacred ground. If you feel disconnected from purpose, recall the hero's journey. What is the call you've been ignoring? What threshold must you cross? Begin with a small act of courage. Write the book, speak the truth, leave what no longer serves. Myths remind us, transformation doesn't require perfection. It requires action. Even one step into the unknown initiates the process. But myth is not only about self. It is about the collective. As you awaken your inner myth, you begin to see the shared story of humanity, how our culture has fallen into forgetfulness, and how each of us can become a bearer of the sacred flame. Your growth ripples outward. To overcome challenges, remember, the monster is always the guardian of treasure. If a pattern repeats in your life, it is not punishment, it is an encoded message. Ask, what is the lesson? What part of the story am I stuck in? Myths teach us to lean into darkness, not avoid it. Only by walking through the underworld do we retrieve the gold. And finally, remember playfulness. The sacred need not be solemn. Myths are filled with tricksters, laughter, absurdity. So be open to symbols in dreams, synchronicities in nature, songs that stir your soul. The universe is not silent. It speaks in whispers, riddles, and metaphors. To live mythically is to live consciously. To see with more than your eyes. To trust that your life, no matter how ordinary it seems, is the unfolding of a sacred script. Because the myth isn't just in ancient texts, it is in you. The myths of old were never just stories. They were maps, etched in fire, stone, and song, pointing toward a hidden truth, that the universe speaks to us not only through stars and silence, but through story. And those stories, though wrapped in the garments of gods, demons, serpents, and sages, were always speaking about you. You are the one called to adventure. You are the one who must face the shadow, pass through the darkness, and return bearing the light. You are the living myth, the sacred script unfolding with every breath. When we begin to read ancient myths not as fantasy but as encrypted wisdom, the world transforms. The mundane becomes magical, the chaotic becomes meaningful, and every challenge becomes an initiation. We explored how symbols like the serpent, the tree, and the flood are more than ancient imaginations. They are expressions of universal principles. We unraveled how the hero's journey is not a story of the past but a mirror of our own inner evolution. And we discovered practical ways to live mythically, through symbolic journaling, archetypal meditation, and seeing every day as sacred. So what if the universe really is revealing its secrets through ancient myths? The question now is, are you listening? If this journey sparked something within you, an old memory, a deep yearning, a flicker of ancient knowing, then let that be your call. Explore further, meditate deeper, question more boldly, and most of all, live as if your story matters. Because it does. Thank you for walking this path with us. If this video opened your mind, touched your heart, or stirred your soul, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support keeps this sacred flame burning. Until next time, walk in mystery, live with meaning, and listen closely. The myth is speaking. Thank you for watching.